Hello everyone and welcome to blaugranaeverything and welcome back to the channel and welcome to yet another match review for what happens to be yet another loss in an Clasico. I mean, back-to-back losses now, falling out from the PSG and 3 Clasico losses in a row as well. Not looking good. Xavi not really going out here with a blaze of glory or, shining or anything like that. And in as much as I do pin some of the blame on him for this one, I also don't, because exactly what can you do when the officials don't give you goals that you've actually scored? I mean, that was probably one of the worst goals I've seen in La Liga. It's not the first time we've seen it in La Liga. Somehow there's still no goal line technology, despite every other league, every other top 5 league having that. But we'll get into all of that later maybe. I really do need to get around to putting out that documentary style video talking about why exactly La Liga is becoming more and more, say, relevant, not just with respect to, the competition, like the Premier League or whatever, but just generally, even for the fans, those of us watching, we no longer buy into some of these results. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's a match review, so like we usually do, we're going to talk negatives, positives, then, the team ratings and maybe a man of the match. I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and do that. We'll start, of course, with the negatives, of which there were quite a few, as you can imagine. The first one I would have to say here is going to be a slight at Xavi, because I think his game management in this particular instant was very poor, and it's probably what cost Barcelona even a point. Because what I mean is this: from the moment that Barcelona went 2-1 up, you kind of knew what was going to happen next. Real Madrid were going to try and push forward, because obviously they're not trying to lose in front of their fans. So if you're going to have Madrid pushing forward with the kind of attackers that they have, the last thing you want to do is to keep playing that high line. But very naive of Xavi, that's exactly what he did. Should have asked his players to drop deeper, button down the hatchets. Should have probably taken off João Cancelo as well, because that boy cannot defend, and it's no coincidence all 3 of the goals came from his side of the pitch. Starting with the penalty. They put penalty in quotation marks because that was not a penalty, but starting with that, then going to the second goal as well from Vasquez, and to the third goal as well for Bellingham. All of them really deeply rooted in Cancelo's complete inability to defend that space in behind him. And knowing that you have a guy like him in defense, I think as a coach you ought to take some responsibility, and you ought to tell the rest of the team everybody needs to pull back. If you're going to give away another penalty, fine. Let that be why they get in, not because you left acres of space. Vasquez was in miles of space when he took that shot. So that's probably my first negative. My second negative, it has to be João Cancelo. I'm sorry, man. I don't like picking on players, but he just so happened to have been a complete negative for Barca in this game. He gave absolutely nothing to Barca going forwards, and every time Real Madrid attacked him, they looked like scoring. And like I said, all 3 of the goals came from that side of, the defense. Kubarsi had to, try and deal with Vasquez. That's how they gave away that penalty early on. But beyond all of that, it was just Cancelo's inability to close out the space and be aware of what's going on behind him. That Vasquez goal is like a carbon copy of the goal Dembele scored, in midweek. And once again, it was just Cancelo completely falling asleep. He should have been taking care of that. So personally, going by what he's shown us this past 2 weeks, I wouldn't be looking at signing this guy permanently, especially when you got Julian Araujo, who's been playing decently, and Las Palmas, and you've got Hector Fort and Alejandro Balde as well. I'll just take my chances with those 3 rather than spend a huge amount of money on somebody who's not even going to help us defensively, because guess what? The reason Real Madrid are winning La Liga is because Barcelona just defensively cannot hold it together this season. And a huge part of that falls on Cancelo, who I'm going on him pretty hard here, but just generally that entire experiment with him playing at left back has not worked at any point. I do not remember any game this season where we had Cancelo at left back and we looked defensively solid and he was giving us a lot going forward. Okay, maybe FC Porto at home, that's probably going to be like an exception. But generally speaking, Barcelona have struggled whenever Cancelo has played in that position, and that probably goes again to the manager. But my third and final negative here is going to probably be, the good old La Liga officiating. I don't really know how much more I can say. Trash call for the penalty. Vasquez clearly dangled out a leg, and if anything, he kicked Kubarsi rather than the other way around. Then we go from that to the Lamine Yamal goal that was disallowed when clearly that was over the line. I don't know what VAR is doing when they can freeze that and see, I could probably put it up on the screen, but, La Liga or copyright strike me. This is as good as I can do. That still frame there showing you just I don't know what more you need to do to score a goal. But anyhow, that's my third and my final negative. And there are some positives, of course. The one thing which Xavi once again did do kind of well was when he made that decision to take off Lewandowski, to take off Rafinha, to bring on Fermin, to bring on Ferran Torres as well, João Cancelo, João Felix. Those were good, positive changes, which I thought, were worth commending here, especially because of the impact that those substitutions had, before Real Madrid made theirs. Because, I'll go back again to probably talking about Xavi's poor game management when we mentioned the fact that Real Madrid made changes to counter his changes and he didn't really do anything to take the game, to take control of the game back after Real Madrid altered their setup. Anyhow, he did positively impact the game with his substitutions, and his substitutes, like I said, they positively did something. Fermin came on and for about 10 to 15 minutes spell, he looked like he could be the game winner for Barca, especially after he scored Barcelona's second goal. But Barcelona didn't defend after getting that lead, so yeah. We're just going to get tired of talking about all of that. I'm going to go ahead and give my team ratings and my manager ratings. For the team here, I felt that there was a group of players here who had particularly good games, and there were those who had forgettable games. Just, terrible. They didn't do anything type of games. Those players are, of course, Cancelo. I would have thrown Gundogan this time around. He wasn't doing enough for me, and the same for Lewandowski. And, Lamine Yamal, Fermin Lopez, Rafinha, you could argue, and, Koundé, Araujo, and Kubarsi. These guys looked pretty good, and so did Christensen. Did I mention the guy who Xavi inexplicably pulled off at halftime? I wonder why. I hope it's not an injury, because we just lost Frankie de Jong, so hopefully it's not an injury to Christensen. But in which case, if it's not an injury, why did Xavi take off Christensen, who was arguably one of our better players? And from the moment Christensen came off, it was so obvious Jude Bellingham would start getting more space in the game and he would have more of an effect. And, it just so happens he went ahead and won the game for Real Madrid again, because the guy who had been keeping him quiet for the entire first half wasn't on the pitch. So there's that. So I guess because of that, I'm going to give a team rating of 6 out of 10. I was going to say 5.5, but let's not be too harsh here. 6 out of 10 team rating, but for the manager though, it's a 5 out of 10, because really this is a match that he lost because he wanted to. I'll put it that way, not say that he was trying to lose the game, but he ended up losing the game because of what he did. So, he did it indirectly. Directly, he wasn't trying to lose the game, but that's what he ended up doing. And I get it, sometimes you have to throw caution to the wind and you have to attack because, at the end of the day, you want to get the result. But there are ways of securing the result. Once you have the lead, you should learn to shut things down. You know, we saw the same thing against PSG when Barcelona had the lead and they went down to 10. He had the opportunity to shut the game down, but he didn't. That was the same thing he did here, and it's cost him once again. And unfortunately for him, he's going to sign out from his Barcelona stint with 3 straight losses in El Clasico, which doesn't look good, because I think overall he's been a better manager than that would suggest. Anyhow, that's basically that for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let me know what you thought of the refereeing in particular, and also the performances, especially of some of our defenders like Cancelo. I don't know. Let me know, who do you think is the guy you could probably like point a finger at? I know I'm not supposed to advocate finger pointing here, but man, Cancelo, nah. Otherwise, I thank you for tuning in. To have a great day, and Forza Barca.